Hi and welcome everyone to this little video, courtesy of the School of Political Science International Studies. It's about plagiarism and how to avoid plagiarism, how to have integrity when you work. I'm here with my colleague, Dr. Alistair Stark. My name is Sebastian Kaempf. We're both lecturers here in the school, and what we would like to do here is talk you through plagiarism and integrity. Talking about why it is that you should bother about this, give you a sense and understanding of what plagiarism is and integrity, show you a couple of examples, the most common examples of plagiarism, and then most importantly building upon that, giving you a sense of what to do to successfully avoid falling into the plagiarism trap. So let's kick this off. Why should I bother?
It's a very good question. There's probably at least 3 answers to it. Hopefully you've already answered the question yourself. Plagiarism is serious. There is a system in place that is designed by the university and implemented by the school. If you enter into that system, it's a serious issue, and there are serious sanctions attached to guilty penalties, guilty verdicts. If you're found to have cheated in terms of plagiarism, there are serious ramifications. So you need to consider this very seriously. The second reason is because you're cheating yourself. If you are engaging in plagiarism or shoddy scholarship, then you're not learning. You're not developing as a student, and you're cheating yourself out of an education. And the third reason is very practical. Increasingly, Turnitin software, which is designed to detect originality, is being used across the university. So it's very likely that if you do engage in this activity, you will be held to account. So that's 3 pretty strong reasons why you should think about it.
Thanks, Al. What is plagiarism? I mean, we have heard of the term, right? It might mean all sorts of things to different people, but there's a particular definition that UQ uses, and Al, being so well prepared, brought the actual definition here. So
yeah, it's important that you understand that these definitions exist and you engage with them. Plagiarism, according to the university regulations, is, quote, the act of misrepresenting as one's own original work the ideas, interpretations, words, or creative works of another, either intentionally or unintentionally.
can I just say before you go into what this means, I mean, if you are watching this and you have never seen that before, where do I find that definition? It's on the UQ website, right?
It's on the UQ website, but you can access it through the School of Political Science Essay Writing Handbook. Okay, you access that handbook through the school's website by clicking on Student Resources and Handbooks. That will take you via a link to this wonderful university policy document. You can scroll down and get all the different definitions, plagiarism, and also integrity, which is another important one to understand. This relates to the moral code or ethical policy of academia. It includes the avoidance of cheating, the avoidance of plagiarism, but it's more about maintenance of academic standards, honesty and rigour in research and academic publishing. So plagiarism is about cheating, integrity is about being a good academic.
But what we get from the plagiarism definition is that it's actually a form of cheating that can be intentional as well as unintentional, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So typically everyone more or less knows that to deliberately plagiarise is to take the work of someone else and try to pass it off as your own. That's intentional plagiarism. Unintentional plagiarism is where you have perhaps attempted to reference the work of others, attributed that work to them via, for example, including a reference in the text, but, for example, forgot to put quotation marks in. That's unintentional plagiarism, and it's crucial to understand that you can enter the plagiarism system through intentional cheating or unintentional plagiarism, where you didn't intend to plagiarise, yet poor scholarship has meant that you have. So this is an expanded definition by the university, and it's worth getting to know it and thinking about intentional versus unintentional plagiarism.
Great, thanks. When we talk about the more positive steps you can take, we come, I think, back to this because it's quite you will become more aware of this once we talk about how you actually should work when you do in your essay writing and how to avoid this, and it's going to become a little bit more clearer. We thought it would be really good to give you a sense of the most common examples of plagiarism that we have come across, and when I say we, it's like collecting this from colleagues here in political science and international studies, but also from Elle, who is currently the Deputy Integrity Officer here in the school. So someone who, if you were to be caught by plagiarism, you would have to meet in person, and I can assure you he's less sympathetic in those meetings and kind and you know, full of jokes as he is in his normal life. So the first and most clear-cut example here is where you take a piece of work, a text, a sentence, half a sentence, whatever it is, from someone else, and you put it in your essay, but you fail to put in quotation marks or references. So you take verbatim copying of another text, and you do not acknowledge this. What you essentially are doing is you're pretending that these are your own words, right? And that's the most clear-cut example of plagiarism.
And in that process, you go straight to the chief examiner from the School of Political Science for a very uncomfortable meeting with the chief examiner. And ultimately, if he finds you guilty, that will be recorded permanently on your academic transcript. So avoid this one.
Because it's going to be stated on your final documents from your queue if you apply to an employer. So I think that already shows you of how serious this actually is for the university. And I think it's, you know, I think that's a very commonsensical one, right? You can understand it's someone else's work and you need to represent it as such.
Unintentional plagiarism we covered in terms of the official definition, but again, just be very careful, okay? If you reference someone's work, but you have quoted them verbatim without quotation marks, then you are liable to enter the plagiarism system, okay? What you've done is you've said, this is the work of someone else, this is their idea, this is their theory, this is their argument, but what you've not done is said, this is their words too, okay? So you have passed off their words as your own. Even if you've simply forgot to put the quotation marks in, the system does not care. You will enter the system and you will have to make the case that it was unintentional, and you don't want to be in that position. So make sure if you provide a reference that you also provide quotations. If you don't have quotations, then what we assume is that you are simply providing a reference of a general argument or a general theory, that you're not using that person directly in terms of a verbatim quote.
Yeah.
Paraphrasing with or without referencing, again, as part of the writing process, you have to make sure, as much as humanly possible, that the words belong to you. Paraphrasing does not necessarily fall into the plagiarism side of things, but it is an example of very bad scholarship that will be picked up through the Turnitin system, okay? So try and avoid paraphrasing as much as possible. Try and use your own words.
And then very importantly, which doesn't seem to be that obvious at the beginning, if you are writing a new essay right now, then you cannot use other parts of previous essays that you have written or that a friend of yours might have written. Even if that work has been submitted the previous year or for a different course, whatever it is, right? Once you have submitted something to the university, then any new essay needs to be written anew. And that refers to small parts, even as like a half sentence or half a paragraph. So be very careful that you make sure that you avoid this by all means. And yes, of course, we understand that sometimes there's a bit of an overlap between some of the topics that you will engage with across different courses. But you are aware of this, so avoid this. Change the way you express these kinds of things, right? And you're on the safe side. Also, when you look very carefully before you submit your assignments online, you will have to tick off a box which says that you hereby acknowledge that this essay has not been submitted in whole or in part to any other course around UQ. So make sure in the process of writing this that you avoid this at all costs.
Yeah. If you use a significant piece of work twice, it's a big integrity issue. If you steal someone else's work, a classmate, a peer, that's a serious issue. That is, it's dealt with very seriously. You are not only cheating yourself, but you're cheating a friend or a classmate, and that's a really big one. So be aware of that.
Yeah. All right. So we now want to spend a little bit of time just talking about plagiarism patterns, i.e., the reasons as to why plagiarism tends to occur from our experience here, to give you a sense of how to avoid it.
So in the plagiarism system, we offer a lot of counselling, and in counselling meetings we try and advise students about how not to repeat the issue that's come up, and what we see in those counselling meetings are the same reasons, patterns of reasons that exist across students across years, from undergraduate to postgraduate. The first of these is that students are simply unaware of the definition of plagiarism. They have no idea what plagiarism really means, and they've never looked at the specific definition or indeed understand that distinction that we mentioned earlier between intentional and unintentional.
Good. And you find this in the essay guide, you find this online and so on, right? What you also find online is a tutorial about plagiarism and how to avoid it. You find this under My SciNet. You are actually obliged and expected to have done this tutorial. So, do it, look through it. It gives you another level of understanding.
The POLSIS Essay Guide, which we've mentioned already, via the school's website, click on Student Resources and then click on Handbook. Will take you here. You will get lots of advice about referencing. You will get a link to the definitions of plagiarism, and you will have a link to that online tutorial, an essential first step.
Absolutely. Turnitin. That's the software we use for which you have to submit your essays, and that is there to help bring up any potential cases of plagiarism. Now, this software is not your enemy, not your nemesis, and in fact it can be your friend in the way that you can, in quite a few of these courses that you'll take, use Turnitin in a formative way. That means you can submit your essay prior to the deadline and have a report about your essay being generated that is not the final one, but it allows you to make corrections to your essay, to also understand and see where you might have intentionally or unintentionally engaged in plagiarism. And then you can make those corrections, make it right, get it right, and submit the final version into that. So it's a really nifty tool to start using to help you avoid plagiarism.
Yeah, when it's used in a course, just use it. Make sure that if you can submit 2, 3, 4 times, that you do it. It's a no-brainer. The options there is designed to help you. Make sure you use it.
Yeah. You want to go over this?
Yeah. What we see very, very often in the counselling sessions is that students have either taken no notes, or they've taken notes hastily, or worse still, they have simply opened up a series of books or articles or online resources while they're writing and simply taken directly from them as part of the writing process. We are going to return to this in a later slide, but it's absolutely crucial that you understand that note-taking is an academic process, that it's a crucial process, and it's a means through which you can avoid plagiarism, because it will translate the words of others and it will synthesize the words of others with your own knowledge, and that process is absolutely crucial.
Yeah. And then very importantly, that is, as with any assignment that you will write in your studies, avoid the deadline. Don't avoid the deadline. Avoid being very late for a deadline. Don't start working too late. Instead, turn it around. Start early. If you're running out of time, if you only have 2 days to to write an essay, you're more prone to engage in plagiarism than if you had more time. Plus, your essay in general would not be as strong. So I think there's many reasons to actually start your writing process, your reading process, your thinking process, and so on very early. If you are too late, you're more prone to just take full ideas out of someone else's text and plant it into your essay, which, by all likelihood will be seen as plagiarism.
Yeah. If you cut corners, then you're going to cut out crucial steps that will avoid plagiarism.
Yeah. Next slide. Good. So after we have now given you a couple of insights into what plagiarism is, and might have actually depressed you to some extent by talking about why it occurs and that it occurs, and you might be really fearful now about writing an essay. So let's try to end this with a bit of a positive spin, because I think you need to understand what plagiarism is, need to understand where it occurs before we can even start talking about what we're talking about now, which is how to avoid plagiarism here. I'll take the first one, that's easy. Again, come back to the essay guide. It is written specifically for you guys by colleagues here within the school, right? It's updated on an annual basis. It gives you all sorts of information about plagiarism, about referencing, the different referencing styles that you need to know. And even if you are an experienced student, it can't hurt to check it again, because these rules get updated, and it's very important to bear this in mind.
Be honest with yourself. Yeah, I think that this is we kind of touched on this point to some extent earlier, but realise that you aren't cheating yourself, okay? You're not learning skills, you're not developing as a student, you're not being in any way academic if you're engaging deliberately in plagiarism, okay? What's going to happen is you're going to go through 2, 3, 4 years, however many years you're at university, you're going to get out there and you're going to learn that you have learned nothing, okay? So realise as part of the essay writing and assessment process that if you engage in plagiarism, you're cheating yourself, and be really honest with yourself when it comes to that. Even if it's last minute, even if it means getting the thing submitted, it's just not worth it, okay? And you have to be honest and upfront with yourself in that regard.
Yeah. Because ultimately what we evaluate here at university is the quality of your thoughts and how they develop. Yeah, you need to convey an understanding of various complex issues, and we assess the quality of your thoughts around these issues. And so ultimately, these need to be your own words, and so that's what you need to make sure.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's good. Are you going to do this?
I'll do this one.
You do this one. Okay, that's yours.
This is my number one thing. This is my issue.
He made me put this into the slides earlier, so off you go.
I get incredibly annoyed
We expect something big now.
I do. I get incredibly annoyed around note-taking. Note-taking is an art. Note-taking is an academic process, and note-taking is the way in which you can really create the foundations for a good essay, and in doing so ensure that plagiarism doesn't occur. Okay, so note-taking means reading, obviously, but it also means putting sources to one side, writing the key points that you took from that source without looking at it, going back, taking the quotes that you want and making sure they're in quotation marks, even in the notes, with proper page numbers and years and authors. Crucially, it means injecting your own thoughts, your own ideas and your own arguments around those notes. So what you should have by the time you go to write the essay is a body of notes which reflect you, your thoughts, but also clearly marked out the thoughts and arguments of others. What this means is if you start the writing process with notes that have been well taken, you are never going to plagiarise, okay? Because you're going to have everything that belongs to the academics set out clearly, the work that belongs to you, which is really the most important things from our point of view, set out clearly, and you can merge them through the writing process. Note-taking is incredibly important, and if I'm sounding enthusiastic, it's because I really love note-taking.
Nice, so I think you covered this pretty well. Write in your own words. Now, this might seem a real particular struggle if you start out writing your first essays, and you know, you will hopefully come across very inspiring, well-written, beautifully drafted pieces of work that we all could sometimes only dream about writing in that particular style. And then you're being asked to write in your own words, and it might just look extremely mediocre.
Yeah,
I mean, you should have seen my first essays as a German student writing in English. It read like German.
You should just look at my last article.
But basically, what we're trying to convey is that no matter if you're a first-year student, or whether you're a third-year undergraduate student, or whether you are in a master's program, or whether you're an academic like we are, or if you're a professor, it is an ongoing learning process. And you need to start somewhere. And the best starting point is getting used to writing in your own words.
Yeah.
You know, it can be pretty pedestrian in terms of the language and everything, but it's about the ideas, and you can convey maybe even more so complex ideas in simple words very strongly.
Yeah.
And what we are interested in is your own words and how you develop as an academic across your degree. Yeah. So don't shy away from this. Start with your own words.
Yeah, a good phrase that I try and remember, but really often forget in my own writing, is to think clever, write simple. Sometimes it doesn't always work out that way because you think you have to write in a very complex manner. But if you can express and communicate complicated ideas in a simple, straightforward manner, then you'll get extra marks.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
yeah, don't be an ostrich. Don't bury your head in the sand. Okay, don't to continue the animal analogies. Don't be a rabbit caught in the headlights, okay? We see this all the time. Students avoid facing the challenge of the assessment, and they bury their head in the sand, and they wait because they don't want to start challenging themselves, because maybe they've written a first draft or a second draft and it's quite basic, and you don't want to read your own works and look at your own ideas, and you don't want to challenge yourself. And what that means is, with 24 hours to go, you have to write 3,000, 5,000 words. And you can't hope to do yourself justice. So don't bury your head in the sand. Be organised, be prepared. Don't get caught in the headlights. If you have clutches of assessments and clutches of assessment dates, you can end up being paralysed and not starting the process. So yeah, don't be an ostrich or a rabbit.
And finally, if you were to just directly quote in quotation marks my colleague Alistair Stark, if you were to be an ostrich, though that's not a real direct quotation, actually, I come to realize, but if you were to find that you're struggling with any of this, if you feel that you have not understood fully what plagiarism is, if you have any doubts whether you might undergo some plagiarism practices, then by all means come and speak to us. You will find there's a lot of sources available at UQ in general, through student services, through essay writing workshops, through particular learning sessions for Aus students, but also within the School of Political Science and International Studies. Talk to your course convener. Come to their office hours. Talk to your tutors. Make use of the office hours. Come and discuss your essays and your thoughts. Don't wait until 2 days before the assignment and try to, in a sort of last vain attempt, reach them by email. Start early. Come and see us. And we are here essentially to help you grow as academic scholars. And if you have never been to university, or if you've only experienced university abroad in maybe a different system, maybe in a very hierarchical system, you might find that you cannot talk to your course convener or to your tutor about these things, about your essays, about plagiarism, various things. Well, think again. Here, within the school, but I think in Australia in general, it's a very open door policy. You only because someone has the professorial title or a doctor's title in front of their name does not mean that they are not approachable. In fact, you will find that here within the school, we are here to support you. We're genuinely interested in helping you grow academically, and avoiding plagiarism, writing good essays, using integrity is pretty much part of this. So come and speak to us early on. Don't wait until it's too late.
Yeah.
Okay?
Don't be frightened, be proactive, and don't suffer in silence. Access your tutor, your coordinator, whoever it may be, they will help you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, well, at least we hope that this has given you a little bit of a better understanding of plagiarism, what it is, when it tends to occur, and most importantly, how to avoid it. So if that has helped in your understanding, I think it has,
It's been all worthwhile.
it's been worthwhile. Exactly. All right. Good luck with the essays now.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Ciao.